What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Warriors Report. It's time to talk about Kevin Durant and the Toronto Raptors. Now, it is to note I had made a video several days ago before there was any sort of rumors linking the two together, and I talked about how Kevin Durant would be the perfect place for Toronto and how the Raptors would be the perfect team for him. And I absolutely got killed in the comment section because a lot of people had said, why would the Raptors trade for Kevin Durant? Now, for today's video, I'm going to talk about how Masai Ujiri can bring Kevin Durant to the Toronto Raptors. And I'm also going to discuss some other things as well, talking about which players could possibly move from the Toronto's end to the Brooklyn Nets as well. Now, obviously, Adrian Wojnarowski was reporting that Toronto is a dark horse destination for Kevin Durant. So for today's video, I'm going to discuss some possibilities about Kevin Durant, how he'd fit in with the Raptors, what the Raptors would have to give up, and whether or not this makes sense for both parties. So if you're ready to watch this video, guys, make sure to hit the like button. Let's try to get this video to 200 likes. This is my third video in less than 24 hours. And in fact, I have 4.5 hours to go before I'm actually scheduled to be at work. So I'm putting in a lot of work into this video. So make sure to show your support as well. And I'm going to get right into today's video. Now, as you guys know, I do like to give out shout outs on my channel. And for today's video, there's a special request. I'm actually giving out 2 shout outs. So the shout out goes out to Serge Sombarak, and excuse me if I've mispronounced that name, but Serge, thank you so much for supporting this channel. Your likes and comments, it is very much appreciated. And of course, Todd Stevens, who is always in the comments as well. Todd, your support is very much appreciated. Now, before we talk about which player movements the Toronto Raptors could potentially move, players involving trades, the most important thing we have to talk about is Masai Ujiri. Now, there's always been talks about how he is one of the best managers, general managers. He's gone through different roles, obviously at evaluating talent. Now, a lot of people who don't watch the Raptors may not know this. He was formerly a scout before he became into the NBA. So obviously he does have a huge aspect of that in his game, is that he is able to see talent in a different way that most general managers, most executives would not be able to see, which is why the Raptors have always gotten so many good trades over the past several years since he's been with the Toronto Raptors. Now, before we talk about Kevin Durant, there are a few things we have to take into consideration. Is how does Masai Ujiri view this Toronto Raptors team? I know there's a lot of talk about retooling, rebuilding, but does he believe this team, if they were to acquire Kevin Durant, can compete in the East with the roster makeup, the way the roster is constructed right now, how Kevin Durant would fit in, and whether he believes the core we have with the Toronto Raptors can take them to the next level? Obviously, a trade involving Kevin Durant is going to have to require the Raptors to give up at least 1 or 2 of their starters, including several first-round picks, which is what is being reported of what the Brooklyn Nets want in a return for Kevin Durant. Now, I will say this, Kevin Durant is an absolute elite player. I know Raptors fans feel like we have a really good young team and they want to continue to build that. But again, like I said, if Masai Ujiri decided to make a deal for Kevin Durant, I'd absolutely be in love, because there was a lot of talk when we acquired Kawhi Leonard about why did we give up DeMar DeRozan for someone who does not want to be here. And we saw what Kawhi Leonard was able to do with the Raptors. Now, obviously, that was a different situation. The Raptors are very likely to have to give up a lot more than they did in the previous superstar trade for Kawhi Leonard. And again, I will say this over and over again, is does he view Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes as being the players that can potentially lead the Toronto Raptors to a championship once they have fully developed? And where does he view them as the pecking order? Like, does he believe Gary Trent, OG, or Scotty Barnes in the future, once they have developed, could be a number 2 option, number 3 option on a championship team? So those are just several things to take into consideration when we talk about trades. Now, ideally, I'm hearing a lot of Scotty Barnes trade talks to the Brooklyn Nets for Kevin Durant, but I do want to quickly touch upon the Raptors salary cap situation as well. Obviously, we know Kevin Durant is making quite a lot of money. Now, we're taking a look at the Raptors salary cap situation here. It is not going to be easy to include nearly $40 million in a trade. So that's why I was suggesting that the Raptors will have to include one of their starters. Now, technically, they can actually even trade Thaddeus Young right off the bat. Thaddeus Young is obviously making he's making about $8 million per season. 2 years, $16 million contract was what was being reported. Again, this salary is a little bit old. It is previous season. So Thaddeus Young is showing $14 million there, but he's making about $8 million. And then obviously you would have to throw in someone like an OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr., as well as Cam Birch, who is making $6.6 million. And then obviously you have a trade exception as well, which you can throw in there. So talking about which players may be moved. Now, I will say this, guys. I know a lot of fans are high on Scotty Barnes, as am I. But if the Raptors do decide to move forward with this trade for Kevin Durant, it is very likely he could be moved. But if he does not become a part of that trade, one thing we need to take into consideration as Raptors fans is Kevin Durant is under contract for 4 more seasons. Is Scottie Barnes going to be able to develop properly with Kevin Durant being here? Again, that's assuming we don't give up Pascal or Fred VanVleet. He is very likely to be the third or fourth options. He's not going to be getting as many touches. Obviously, Kevin Durant is going to be our number one option on the offensive side. So does Scottie Barnes potentially not develop to his full potential because Kevin Durant is taking those shots away from Scottie Barnes? Those are just some of the things Masai Ujiri will have to take into consideration. And I always say this, guys. I know people like OG Anunoby. I absolutely understand the love for Gary Trent Jr., but ask yourselves this question without the emotional attachment to these players: is OG Anunoby or Gary Trent Jr. ever going to be a second or third option on a championship team? And if the answer is no, then I'm okay with involving both of them in a trade for Kevin Durant. I know people feel this team is retooling, they're rebuilding, but they have two players that have already been there. They have done it. Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet were a key part of the Raptors team in that championship run, and they were a big part of helping the Raptors win the championship. So if Kevin Durant does come here, he may not have a superstar like Kyrie Irving or James Harden, but I think that misconception with super teams and star players just really wanting to pair up with the other all-star star players is the fact that you can't just throw in 2, 3 star players together. We're seeing it with the Lakers. We saw it with the Brooklyn Nets as well, with James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant. And it's just the fact that those certain players need the ball in their hands to be effective. That is one of the reasons Kevin Durant works so well with the Warriors, because Steph Curry, Klay Thompson are great off the ball. They're catch and shoot 3-point shooters. And although Kyrie Irving is great at that as well, he does need the ball to be effective. So again, it's a lot of those questions surround the super teams that a lot of star players want to perform and go to those teams. And realistically speaking, I know Miami and Phoenix are on his list of teams he'd like to be traded to, but take this into consideration. Miami Heat cannot trade Bam Adebayo in any trade for Kevin Durant because the Brooklyn Nets already acquired Ben Simmons and the rookie contract extension. So Bam Adebayo can actually not be traded to the Brooklyn Nets at all. And I don't think the Brooklyn Nets are wanting to trade for Jimmy Butler for Kevin Durant. Again, that I just don't see a deal happening there on either side. And when you talk about the Phoenix Suns, I just don't think they have enough assets to get it done. The Brooklyn Nets did say they're not going to just trade Kevin Durant to whichever team he wants, because the Phoenix Suns are not going to trade Devin Booker, and they're also not going to trade Chris Paul as well, which would absolutely make no sense at all for Brooklyn either. But again, so when you talk about teams that could fit into Kevin Durant, or I should say, which Kevin Durant would to fit into really well, the Raptors may not have star players, but they have a perfect supporting cast of Pascal Siakam. He's proven to be a number 2 option, and Fred VanVleet, who's a great third and fourth option on a championship team. He would be excellent with Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant has talked about Fred VanVleet in the past as being someone that a lot of undrafted players should look into because of how hard he works. And he's shown love to Fred VanVleet, and he's obviously shown love to Scottie Barnes as well. But again, we'll see. I'm not against the idea of trading for Kevin Durant. Absolutely would love him on the Raptors, and that instantly puts the Raptors in contention, talks about winning the championship. And take this into consideration, guys. I talked about this in the comments section. I forgot to mention it in my last video about Kevin Durant, but if Kevin Durant were to be traded to the Toronto Raptors, there's been obviously a lot of misconception about the Toronto Raptors, the city, the country itself of Canada. But if Kevin Durant were to come here, he's locked in for 4 more seasons. You don't think other players would want to come to Toronto? It's going to change the entire culture of the Raptors. Now, I know people are going to say, well, we've already won the championship. We're in no rush to win another. You're in it to win it, guys. Let's not act like Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr. are going to be leading the Toronto Raptors to a championship just alone with this roster. I know, obviously, Scottie Barnes has a lot of potential, and I really do like him. But like I said, leave it to Masai Ujiri. I wouldn't personally trade Scottie Barnes. And shout out to Raptors Digest, who actually did shout out to Ben. He did a good video. And I was exactly thinking of this when you talk about the Raptors and trade scenarios is we expected Kawhi Leonard to come to the Raptors. And I personally expected at least OG Anunoby or Pascal to be going there. And that wasn't the case. Now, I understand this is a different scenario, but I don't think the Raptors will give up Scottie Barnes. Masai Ujiri is an absolute genius in terms of trades, and he's gotten a lot of great trades done in the past. I don't think he gives up Scottie Barnes. He could potentially give up OG Anunoby, maybe Gary Trent, and some future first-round picks. And personally, I would do that in a heartbeat. Now, I know people will say you're absolutely crazy. They're young players, but stop and think for a second, guys. I know we always talk about Kevin Durant making a lot of money, but OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr. in the future will probably be making 20 plus million each. And if you were to compare the two players, I know Kevin Durant is on the older side. There's questions about his injury, but OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr. alone, put those two together and put Kevin Durant on one side. Who would you rather have? Who do you think is going to lead the Raptors to a championship? I think that's an easy answer. That's Kevin Durant. And again, I love OG Anunoby. He's one of my favorite players, but you can get emotionally attached to players when you talk about the team success and making trades that will help your team win championships. So again, sacrifices have to be made to win championships. I think that would be an excellent trade for the Raptors and the Brooklyn Nets as well. So again, I think the Raptors have one of the most intriguing trade packages that they could potentially offer the Brooklyn Nets. They could offer a mixture of veterans. Again, I don't see that happening in Pascal or Fred, but they also have a really good combination of young guys that have been in the league for quite some time in OG Anunoby and Gary Trent. And of course, they have young guys in Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa, and even, you know what, you can see Delano Banton as well and Justin Champagnie, who they could potentially throw in that trade as well. So again, I'm not throwing trade packages. I'm just throwing out some names of what I think would take to acquire Kevin Durant, and he would just absolutely change the entire culture of the Toronto Raptors. Coming here, a lot of star players may want to come here as well. So I know people feel like he's on the older side, but look at LeBron James. He's playing at such an elite level as still at his age, and I don't doubt Kevin Durant could do that as well. So again, I do want to hear your thoughts as well. I know a lot of people are against the idea of acquiring Kevin Durant, but Masai Ujiri did it for a player that was injured. You didn't know how he was going to play with post injuries. He had 1 year left on his contract. And as Adrian Wojnarowski said, and I believe it was Adrian Wojnarowski, some other ESPN reporters were saying as well, I can definitely see the Raptors trying to acquire Kevin Durant. And that would be a really nice fit for the Raptors as well. So again, you acquire Kevin Durant, you win the championship. Again, I don't see any other team stopping the Raptors. That'd be a really nice fit for the Raptors and Kevin Durant together. So, but I do want to hear your thoughts. I know people are emotionally attached to a lot of players like OG, Gary Trent Jr. So again, realistically, I don't see Pascal or Fred being moved, but I do want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. So leave your thoughts in the comment section. And as always, guys, I do have a trivia question for you today. And that trivia question is, which player from the Raptors roster was born in Washington? Was it A, Gary Trent Jr.? Was it B, Justin Champagnie? Was it C, Malachi Flynn? Or was it D, Hermione Brooks? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section gets a shout out in my next video. So thank you guys again. If you're still watching this video, I do appreciate the support. It means a lot. Thank you for subscribing and your likes. It is very much appreciated. Make sure to leave your comments down or leave your thoughts in the comment section below. That will be it for today's video, guys. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.